Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you this morning. I have to acknowledge many people and many institutions, but first of all, Cassie and the people from this university for all the trouble they've taken to prepare a wonderful conference for us. They really deserve a hand and thanks. And then I am generously funded by the South African Department of Trade and Industry and the National Research Foundation, which allows me to bring 8 bright young African students to Atlanta. So I acknowledge their contribution and the fact that they make it possible for me to do the work that I'm doing, the wonderful work that I'm able to do. Then I also want to acknowledge the many rural people that I've been speaking to the last, I guess, 40 years. It's been a fantastic journey. I have hundreds of friends in rural parts of South Africa, and I acknowledge them. I think it's also customary to acknowledge the indigenous people of this area where we are meeting. So it's not my business, but I just thought I'll mention it. So we also have in South Africa an organization called the Indigenous Plant Use Forum. In 2015, we had a joint meeting in Killen-William, the area of the rooibos tea. So I just thought I'll mention it briefly that we also have the 25th. It's the 25th annual conference that I've arranged this year in Skokuza in the Karoo National Park. And that's going to be really a special event. So you're more than welcome to join us. That is just the IPAF meetings are multicultural and interesting events. So I think it will be very interesting for you. Anyway, back now to my lecture. And I want to share with you this morning some profound discoveries I made over the years. It's strange sometimes how long it takes for the penny to drop. But I think the penny has finally dropped. And I will share with you my insights into the most ancient of all human cultures. Arguably going back 160,000 years. So if you study European history, then we talk thousands of years. And in this case, the knowledge arguably comes from thousands of years. The oldest evidence of human abstract thinking is 164,000 years old. The oldest rosary, the oldest jewelry is 60,000 years from Blombos Cave, a rosary of little shells pierced in the same position. So we are talking of really the oldest artist palette comes from also Blombos Cave area on the Southern Cape. It's an abalone shell with little brushes and clay and ochre. So it's really an ancient culture. And I tell you now where I'm heading. I'm telling you where we're going with this. We're going in 3 directions. The first one is the significance of aromatic bushes, which is a complicated subject. It sounds very simple, you know, perfume, or what's so funny about it? But this is this is actually the most important aspect of San and Khoi medicinal culture. It has a religious, spiritual, cosmetic, and many other implications, the buccal or the sun. And most people think if you talk about bushmen, you talk about people from the bush. But it is actually a direct translation of the original name that the Khoi people gave to the sun. The San Khoi, the bush people. San or Son Khoi. Son is an aromatic bush Khoi is people. So if Nama Khoi, Nama people, San Khoi, aromatic bush people. So bushmen means the people who anoint their bodies with aromatic bushes. So that is the first aspect. Then the second is the fact that medicine were originally chewed. Because in the central part of Southern Africa, the dry desert part, there's not much water to speak of, right? So you can't boil your, there was no boiling of water. There were no pots originally, no containers. And over the years, I've collected many examples of medicine being eaten to this day. I'll show you the data. And then thirdly, and the most exciting penny that dropped for me, is that the original southern bushmen, the Karoo people that once inhabited the Karoo parts of Southern Africa, their language and their mythology was very well documented. It's online available, Bleek and Lloyd. But unfortunately, the botanical and traditional knowledge was not recorded at all. Or there's just one or two names. And so everyone thought, me included, that the Karoo medicinal system is no longer for us possible to know what plants they used and so on, that it has gone extinct. But fortunately, it did not go extinct. And it's very much alive and well in rural parts of the Deep Cape area. So Southern Africa is a very special place, and I'm very privileged to be able to work there, because it's an area of extreme cultural and botanical diversity. There you can see the statistics, thousands of species. I think that endemism figure can be higher. Some people say 70% endemism for Southern Africa. And there you see the oldest evidence of human abstract thinking in the form of heat-treated silkreed. It improves the fracturing of the rock so that you make better implements. It's more glass-like. And this is an intentional process. It cannot happen accidentally by felt fires or so. Most of the archaeological discoveries are along the coast, the so-called strandlopers, beachcombers, right? The beachcombers were actually San people. So there's a direct link between the San, bushmen, so-called bushmen, and the original people that inhabited the coast, and where the artifacts go back 160,000 years. This system is very interesting. You have all sorts of unusual medicinal practices. The most important perhaps is what one could perhaps call aromatherapy, the habitual massage of the body. So whenever a San person used to sit down next to the fire and start talking, they would take out their buccal container, either, I'll show you, with powdered aromatic plants, buccal or son, and they would take fat from the fire and start rubbing themselves all the time. So they had this preening motions. My father, I've witnessed this in the Calvinia area, and this habit of theirs gave them the name the San Khoi, the people who use bushes to anoint their bodies. But you have things like trance dance that you can see there, the transfer of heat by hand, massage, noise therapy, to shout someone, to say, please don't leave us, stay alive. Various things. The other interesting thing, male and female plants, seemingly irrational from a scientific perspective. So there's other deep meanings to this. It's not really male and female in the sense that a botanist would describe it. Masticatories, very important. You chew your medicine, you eat your medicine over long periods. Snuff and poultices. And there are two products that's typical for Cape culture, for the Khoi and San culture. That's klipblom, rock flower. It's a lichen found on rocks, highly inflammatory, anti-inflammatory. And then Herasium, the concretions of rock rabbit urine, which is a very important medicine to this day. So the literature, you have to basically know the literature when you start delving into this. There's been quite a bit of information. I would say the most valuable one is Kolbe, 1719, a very underestimated publication. Yesterday, we heard about the legal systems, indigenous legal systems, and I think that is one of the interesting aspects of this Kolbe's book. He admired the legal system of the Khoi and San people of that time. So Kolbe's admiration for these people and their intelligence is very clearly visible in the pages of that wonderful book of 1719. And then, of course, we have rock art, and I'll show you some examples. But of course, it's not explicit, it's not clear, you know, and there's very few plants depicted in rock engravings and rock paintings. It's mostly animals. But there's an example of an aloe, that's from Aliwal North, close to the Lesotho border. What makes the Khoi and San people interesting is, of course, that the original language of humanity, of modern humans, is the click languages. And so there are many clicks, very complicated languages. The one shown at the bottom here has 84 different clicks. The clicks alone add up to 84 different clicks. So highly complicated, highly intelligent people. I had the fortune to spend some time with them. And it's remarkable how we can communicate even though we do not understand a single word what we are talking. So, and you can see the complexity there. Some of these languages are extinct and some are going extinct. Some have only 1 or 2 speakers left. So it's really a tragedy the way these, because with the language, of course, goes all the information. Some interesting artifacts that I came across recently. I found this on a farm, the gong stone. Well, gong stones are well known. So it's like an orchestra. You make medicine, you hit the gong stone, and it makes quite a beautiful, loud sound. And this is a site where you have overlooking the valley. So I imagine the San people sat there looking at the game from a distance and making gong sounds. And then a rare example of contemporary stone tool use in the form of a nama knife, a razor-sharp quartz that's used to slaughter goats. At that time, they were still slaughtering goats with this rock. Then we have beautiful rock art. Some of you who were in Plain William would recognize this. Look at that beautiful baby. It's not a zebra, it's actually a Cape Quagga, extinct Cape Quagga foal. How it's unsteady on its legs, you can see that. Very beautiful. And then a hunter. And then on the right-hand side, you have a battle scene of tall, dark people attacking small people in a cave. You can only imagine what that could mean. Then engravings, there are many, many engravings, thousands of engravings, very hard to date, thousands of years old. The one on the left was a recent discovery in Brandvlei. So there are a few, I'll just give you a few examples of plants that are found in rock paintings. This, of course, the bushman poison bulb is a very important plant. It was used for mummification. There's a 2,000-old mummy, a Karoo mummy that was discovered in a bed of the bulb scales of Bufana. But of course, it's the hallucinogen. It's the one that you use to see the other world, so to speak. And I have there a photo on the top right of those men dare not go close to that poison bulb. They are quite scared of it. In that area, the females know how to use it and how to, when they do the healing dance, they have to take a careful dose to help them on their journey to see things. And there you see some engravings that's clearly showing the Bufuna. The other example is a well-known pharmaceutical product called Devil's Claw. It's available all over the world. It came from the Northern Cape originally, just after the Second World War. Some Germans took it to Germany, and you can clearly see the fruit of the devil's claw. Yeah. So there are the three insights. The way where I'm heading with this lecture. So the first one is then the origin of buchu, and here I'm just repeating what I already said. The name, the very name, comes from the close association between San people and nowadays also Khoi, later Khoi. And there you see a bird's nest that's used as a buchu container, buchu powder container. There's a confusion about this because commercialized buchu, Agathosma betulina, is only one of many buchus. So there are about at least 50 buchu species that's been used as buchu. There you can also see male and female. Female buchu is considered to be threatening to a man's virility. So in the Kalahari, they chose the old man to go and fetch the female buchu because apparently it didn't matter for him anymore. But otherwise it's dangerous. There are some examples of various buchu plants. You can see, for example, the very last one, it was, the names were confused in the literature. It wasn't correct. So Gwari son means, son is the buchu. So it's Gwari buchu basically, because the leaves look like Gwari, like another plant that's called Gwari. So there's a lot of little things that one can discover. The other recent discovery was this grinding stone, but that was clearly used to powder buchu. It's in the middle of the Kalahari, I mean, in the middle of the Karoo, near Hanover. And you can see that ironstone is worn away to the extent that it must have been hundreds of, well, thousands, at least thousands of years of continual use to create that kind of. So a summary of the buchu, significance of the buchu. Let me quickly go through this for you, because you can probably read faster than I can talk. But it's a unique, unique to the Southern African culture, to the Click-speaking people, more than 50 species. Aromatherapy, if you thought it was a French invention, it is not. It is an ancient African tradition. Buchu is a profound medicine. It has cosmetic, ritual, and spiritual significance. There's a lot of literature on this. And then the habitual use of buchu powder gave them the name San and Khoi, or bushmen, aromatic bush people. Male and female species can be distinguished. The chemistry and bioactivities are very poorly studied. Many of these species have never been studied. The chemistry is still unknown, and yet they were recorded many, many years ago. And then there's also a whole field of study opening up on the possible pheromone effects of these buchu products. Okay, so then the second aspect, the second theme is the chewing of medicine. And it has a bit of a history because I did see in different parts of the Cape. My display is frozen now. It's not moving. Oh, there it's going. Maybe it's just slow. Sorry, thank you. An example of such a masticatory that's been confused was, of course, Hoodia. Hoodia was a product that made millions of dollars for many unscrupulous business people, trying to make a pill, to swallow a pill to stop craving for food. But that's, of course, extremely, I mean, it's totally unrelated to the traditional use. And basically it comes down to, if you eat poison, you lose your appetite. And if you're fit, the poison does not affect you, because this is apostasy, right? So low doses, It gives you a version in the mouth. So you chew it, you don't swallow it, you chew it. It's a masticatory. Preferably don't swallow it. And so unless you eat only very small pieces. So the whole story of Hoodia is, and that's also, of course, an interesting story also from the point of view of property rights and benefit sharing and so on. So my data from the Cederberg, for example, I've been working on the Cederberg for 20 years or more. And there you see that 28 different medicinal plant species are actually used as masticatories, as chew. When they're out in the field, they just chew. If you have headache, you just chew some medicine and that's it. No teas in the original, but teas were a Dutch invention. Tea and coffee came with the Dutch in the colonial era. There's no evidence of tea and coffee before that colonial era. And there you can see all the different interesting pharmacological implications of what I'm saying. So we really don't know what effect chewing will have, because the pharmacological studies do not consider chewing stuff in your mouth. This is still stuck. I have a lower, sorry, can I just ask some help here? Ah, there we go. Okay, maybe it's just slow. So there's a summary, effective breakdown of cellular material. What is the implications of mastication? It's different to swallowing a pill. Prolonged chewing, prolonged absorption in the mouth, the reduced particle size. Prolonged exposure to saliva. We know that enzymatically human saliva is different to other primates. So there's some genetic differences between salivas. The role of taste. We know about the Marum effect, the stimulating effect of bitter substances. That's why we have a gin and tonic before dinner. Prolonged buccal absorption, effective passing the blood-brain barrier. So if you eat nitrogen compounds and alkaloids, they reach the brain very quickly, like when we chew tobacco, the same principle. Avoiding acid hydrolysis in the stomach. So compounds may be broken down. And so, of course, the pharmacology is totally unstudied for most of these plants, or all of them, actually. And the third discovery was that the actual medicinal plant system of the undescribed is still very much alive and well in rural parts. It first came to my attention when we did a study in the southeastern Karoo. That's the area where the Sneeuwberg bushmen used to live. And I actually tried to speak to them about, and they had exactly the same medicine as the Khoi people. I made surveys there. So I had the inkling that maybe it's the same. The Kariki people from that part could not offer any new species that wasn't already recorded. And then just examples of recent studies. All of these studies, well, the insight came, of course, from many years of dedicated study. So here we have, for example, Canal Land, Little Karoo. You can see the statistics there, enormous amounts of data that we collected. The same in Makwaland, Karoo. Many new records, 105 new Nama names, etc. And this is Cape Nama. It's not Namibian Nama. So what makes Southern Bushman land relevant is the fact that they had this, they developed the largest, or they're busy developing the largest radio telescope in the world. Eventually it will have 1 million square meters of reception area. And for this purpose, they had to vacate 120,000 hectares. And with that, of course, went all the local knowledge of plants and uses. And so the NRF, the National Research Foundation, asked me to do a survey to capture as much indigenous knowledge as I can. And this is where we came, how we came to Bushman land. The Shenzhen Declaration was in the International Botanical Conference of 2017. It became clear for the first time that knowledge can also go extinct, or the realization that it's not only species that can go extinct, but that the knowledge about nature can also go extinct. And once it's gone forever. And so this is relevant because in our work now in southern Bushman land, we have done a lot of work to record the local knowledge. There you see the layout. On all of those places marked in red is the places where the Kaam people that you see below came from and were interviewed by Blake and Lloyd. And their mythology turned out to be exactly word by word the same as what people in the rural areas, those illiterate people of the southern Bushman land, have the same mythology still, word by word, and it is illiterate people. They didn't read it somewhere. So if the mythology was taken over by the Ku people, then certainly the medicine was also taken over. So we've written all this up. It's currently being edited. It's a complete inventory of southern Bushman lands, or the whole of Bushman lands, useful plants. And then we also have a process of feedback to communities, and this is a bilingual feedback book. The local people speak Afrikaans now. And I just want to bring your attention to how profound the medicine really is. And it's holistic. In other words, African medicine is holistic. It treats the body and the mind. And where I come from, South Africa, is the place of origin of the concept of holism, first written in 1926 by General Jan Smuts. And there is the definition of holism. And then Einstein was very impressed with Smuts, and he suggested that relativity and holism will be focal points for the future of thinking. And it relates to something like the cancer bush, Sutherlandia, or Lacertia nowadays, that have all these different effects. And in different parts of the Cape, different uses are focused on. And I'm pretty sure that we know nothing about. It's easy to dismiss this plant as nothing really profound, but I think we are just not clever enough. We do not know how to handle synergy, how to explore synergy. We can explore it in antibacterial studies. That's been done, where you can show, for example, that camphor and 1,8-cineol has a powerful synergistic effect. That's why Vicks works so well. That's a miracle product. It's very simple. The profound antibacterial effect of mixing eucalyptol and camphor. Practical implications of this work. If we want to further develop our wonderful botanical heritage, we will have to pay attention to the proper way of studying these plants. And there's a huge potential. So I couldn't go into detail, but some of these tests we made, for example, renosterbos is 100 times more effective against foot odor than the active ingredient of foot powder. 100 times more effective. Crude extracts. And that's a traditional use that wasn't even recorded before. So there are the three main insights. I hope you enjoyed sharing it with me. And if you want to read more about Southern African botany and medicinal plants in general, I have written several books, and I've brought a few copies of People's Plants and Medicinal Plants of South Africa. In People's Plants, you will find a lot of what I've said about all the different plant uses. So thank you very much for your attention. I enjoyed talking to you. Hello. Oh, yes.
Hi, my question is about fungi. Has
Yes.
anybody been recording their knowledge about the use of, let's say, Kalahari tuber phaelii, which is the desert truffle that they have growing there and that they are using, the sun, for instance?
Yes.
Is anyone recording those things?
Yes, well, of course, the truffle is well known as a food plant, and I'm not sure if there are any medicinal uses recorded, but there are some other fungi that's used by Khoi and San people. For example, the fungus that grow on antheals. I forgot the name for the moment.
Termitomyces.
No.
Termite. It's termite mushroom. It's
No, not the big Thermotomyces. It's a cat mushroom that it's called ayusi by locals, and they use it for cosmetic purposes. The spores are reddish brown, and they have all sorts of rituals that they do with this. It's a protection against the sun, and they say they make springbok gesiggies. Now, a springbok, if you look at a springbok's face, it's got these markings, and they mimic the markings of this children. Is like a game that little girls play to make springbok gesiggies. And so that's the one. And then, of course, we have the lichen, the rock lichens. There are several species that are used, poorly studied, well, almost not studied at all. But this genus that I cannot come up with a name now, there's actually one that grows in a macroland that's not associated with termites. It looks very similar to the termite one, but it's not. So there's a lot of interesting work to be done in exploring the taxonomy even of these fungi. And of course also Usnea, the beard moss, that's also used in the Southern Cape. But that's all that comes to mind immediately. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I ask a question? Could you say a little bit more about the male and female plants? Was that mostly related to female issues, or is it different? What did you learn about that?
Let me demonstrate to you what happened to me. Blikkie Steenkamp, my friend in Newdville. I was talking to him. He's a sun man. He has ancient knowledge. It's a wonderful person. So we're walking in the field, and he said, "Oh, careful, careful!" And he pushed me away. And I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "There's a female buccal. Don't go close to it. You may lose your virility." See, it was Agathosma capensis. So they have this strong belief that there is a difference between male and female plants, and that you have to be careful. Exactly what it means, I have no idea, because it maybe has to do with the smell. And that's where I think it needs further exploration, because it may be that there's an inversion effect. Just as our pheromones have either an attraction or an inversion effect. It's quite interesting how complicated this becomes. The other male and female aspect that's quite interesting is in the Richtersveld in Namaqualand, where people still talk Cape Khoi, Cape Khoo, Kwe, Cape Kwe. Those people have different, the men and women have different names for the same plant. I've never came across this anywhere in the world, that females would call it one name and men would call it another name. So there's this, but it's still a mystery, I think, and probably a topic for 10 PhDs, if you ask me.
And the lack of pharmacological studies of these masticatory uses of the plant. So I wonder if there's any model or pharmacological model studying the masticatory intake of plants, and if
Yes.
if you have like any insights into how this could be done to, you know, just.
When the original developers of Hoodia realized their mistake in trying to make pills for treating obesity, they did actually do a clinical study where they had people keeping the Hoodia in their mouth for hours to mimic the traditional way in which the plant is used. And the result, of course, was clear indications of heart problems. These are modified heart glycosides. The pregnanes are very close to heart glycosides that you find in near Oleander and things like that. So that was the one example I know of where they tried to do a mouth study. Of course, chewing tobacco is more or less similar, and we all know how quickly through the mucous membranes you get an immediate effect. We don't eat tobacco, we chew it or we smoke it. We expose it to the mucous membranes. So there's a whole new world opening up for experimentation.